Welcome to the No Quit Living podcast, where we aim to inspire and motivate people to never give up on themselves or their dreams. We will chat with highly successful people from all walks of life and discuss what motivates and drives them to successfully attack life head on and never give up. Welcome to episode number 45 of the No Quit Living podcast. I'm your host, Christopher J. Worth, and today's theme of the day is implementation. Our quote of the day comes to us from Garrison Wynn. Knowledge is not power. Implementation is power. For many different reasons, I'm really excited for today's episode. I met today's guest through the gentleman that was on episode number 2 and number 3 of our podcast, Michael Alden. Michael was kind enough to introduce us as he helped today's guest with his book. One of the main reasons I'm excited for today's show is that our guest happens to be a 17-year-old entrepreneur that turned a tough and very challenging negative time in his life into a huge positive. He also happens to be a rock star in the social media world. I'm proud to introduce my friend, Casey Adams. Casey, I'd like to welcome you to the No Quit Living podcast.
Yeah, I mean, it's great to be on here, man. I'm looking forward to all the questions and really getting my story out there to your audience, man.
No, I appreciate it. So first question I always ask is, are you ready to make it happen, my man?
Absolutely. That's what it's about.
Awesome. So the first question we always ask is a story about perseverance or perhaps a challenging time that tested you, but you kept on going and didn't quit.
Yes, I mean, as you guys know, or you may not know, my name is Casey Adams. I'm a 17-year-old entrepreneur, and kind of the backstory that led me up into what I'm doing now is when I was 15 years old, I was actually in a really bad neck injury playing football. I got diagnosed with interspinous ligament damage, which is a huge, really bad neck injury / disease that caused me to almost be paralyzed, caused me to be in a neck brace for over 15 weeks. But it was kind of that point in my life that, like you said, overcoming and persevering through negativity, that it allowed me to really start learning new things. And when it comes to finding mentors or reading new books and kind of understanding where do I want to take my life from this point. So, I mean, I would definitely say the biggest thing for me in my journey thus far and overcoming and persevering through negativity came from my event back when I was 15 years old, when I really got diagnosed with a very bad neck injury, which led me into what I'm doing today.
You mentioned books and mentors. If you wouldn't mind touching on some people that have mentored you and maybe some of the books during those tough times that you read.
Yeah, definitely. So, I mean, up to this date, I've been able to work with a lot of amazing people. I mean, some people that you guys might know listening. Tai Lopez, he's one of the guys that is absolutely killing it on social media. Multiple 7-figure earner, lives out in LA. And I actually had the opportunity to come to his house and feature in a lot of his online courses because I was able to get in contact through him through just a simple Instagram DM. And I'll touch on more of that later. But I mean, some of my mentors that I really look up to now is definitely Tai Lopez, Grant Cardone, Jeremy Haynes, Jaden Gross, Caleb Maddox, and just a lot of people that are just making a huge dent in the entrepreneurship industry. But I mean, for mentors, and like you were saying, the biggest thing for me being a young entrepreneur was finding the people to kind of ask questions to and where that I can kind of piggyback on them and figure out how I can get myself to the next level.
No, I appreciate you sharing that. And if you wouldn't mind touching on, was there one or two books or a couple that maybe stood out during this whole process as well?
Absolutely. So one of my favorite books is How to Win Friends and Influence People. And it kind of goes over just how to really understand and develop relationships. And that's a huge thing that I learned in that book was just overall, one, figuring out how to deal with people, how to manage yourself, how to really understand whether it be sales. You can kind of just integrate it into a lot of things. So definitely How to Win Friends and Influence People, as well as Think and Grow Rich. That kind of is a book that really transitioned my mind to think a lot of different ways when it came to manifesting your goals and making it happen by taking massive action. So those are definitely two of my books that really transitioned my mindset. And as well for more a practical book was definitely Sell or Be Sold by Grant Cardone, just teaching me the basis of selling and how to really create that sale.
That's a great book. Have you read the 10X Rule by Grant Cardone?
Yeah, I've listened to the audio. That's another amazing book as well.
Yeah, the one thing that Grant talks about in that book, and which is something we talk about often on our show, is Grant talks about all the success he had. It actually took 10 times the activity. So whether it was 10 times the phone calls or 10 times the meetings. And one thing he talks about a lot in that is most people, when they don't hit their goal, they reassess their goal and they step down as opposed to having to put in double the action. So I think the books you mentioned are great, and the actual second most book recommended on our show has been Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill.
Definitely, man. That's one of those books that every person or entrepreneur that I've met, they've actually all have had that book in their life many times. And one cool thing that I've actually found out about that book is I was at this event speaking at the it was called the Epic Mastermind Experience, and I met, he's a billionaire named Brian Sadorsky, and he said for every $1 million he's made, which is like $1,000 million, he's read that book over 1,000 times, he said, in his life.
That's quite a plug for that book, so I'm sure the listeners will. But it's interesting because that book was written in the 1930s, and I was actually talking to somebody about it yesterday, and he was saying that almost everything is still applicable in the book today. Obviously, the section about finding a job is a little bit different today, but the basics and the basis of what that book was based upon still lasts today in 2017, which is pretty cool.
Absolutely, man. It's an amazing read.
So one of the things we talk about every day is staying motivated, and there's so much negativity out there. So a very candid question for you is, what drives you and motivates you every day to keep going?
Definitely, man. So, I would definitely say when it comes to like moving on to that next step and really staying motivated, it all comes down to your purpose. Because, a lot of people, whether it be focusing on money or focusing on that plane ride to across the world, for me, it all comes down to like, what is my definite purpose? Why am I doing what I'm doing? Not a material object, not to meet that next person, but just like, why am I doing each and every day what I'm doing? And number one is just to be fulfilled. And I think the thing that's, instead of me pushing to be successful, it's kind of like pulling me and gravitating me towards it because of the people I'm surrounding myself with. And just overall being in a network of people has allowed me to really stay motivated and stay determined to build relationships with other people from all across the world, all across the country. But like you said and talked about earlier, is like staying persistent and overcoming your tough times is definitely what I look at as like something that I look forward to. Because a lot of people going through life, whether it be having family problems or whatever, it's just like I always want to be overcoming that next negative situation that comes to me. But just overall focusing on where I want to be and manifesting that's the one thing that really keeps me going.
Here's an interesting question for you. If you could be somewhere in 5 years, paint that magical picture, where would it be?
Yeah, so I get this question a lot, and I love it because a lot of people, they'll look up in 5 years in time, and I always say that don't underestimate what you can do in 5 years and don't overestimate what you can do in a single day, right? So for me, it all comes down to like building up in the next 6, 12, 18 months and really focusing on the daily action that I need to take. Because like a lot of people that I speak to, they'll have these really, really high goals, but there's something that they don't work on each and every single day. So for me, whether it comes to my social media following or doing business with certain people, I definitely want to be in the niche of like helping major companies as well as really high level individuals really structure out their personal brand and really help them build their online presence more effectively.
So speaking of that, I'd like you to touch upon a little bit something you said before, which is something we talk about quite often on our podcast. Most people are familiar with the theme of 6 degrees of separation. One of the things we talk about at No Quit Living is 1 degree of separation, meaning you're 1 degree separated from that person or you're 1 degree away from your greatness. You talked about connecting with Tai Lopez via a direct message, and I was wondering if you could just touch on that a little bit because I'm not sure if all of our audience fully understands the ability with some of these social media platforms. Not only can you follow somebody, but you do have that ability to actually connect with them.
Yeah, man. So this is something that I'm glad you brought up because social media today all comes down to not using it to just post pictures or show what you're doing, but using it to connect. That's the overall purpose that I've used it for, as well as that's the main purpose that I believe that people should be using the platform. So for me, like you said, getting in touch with Tai Lopez, and like you said about like that one step away, or if that one DM, I like to say, is like, for me, reaching out to Tai Lopez, I've reached out to him, I've DM'd him multiple times before he got back to me and ended up flying me out. But it was that one time, that in the perfect time, in the perfect place, that I happened to send that one DM, like you said, and that's when he got back to me. That's a huge opportunity that came into my life. He accidentally flew me out. He actually introduced me to a lot of his team that opened up a lot of doors for me. And when it comes to that one direct message or that one Instagram post or that one time you do a live stream, and here's a funny story that my buddy Caleb Maddox, he was doing a Periscope and he only had 4 people inside of his live stream, but one of those people happened to be Grant Cardone's sister and happened to not accidentally, but she accidentally stumbled upon his live stream and ended up interviewing him with Grant. And that's kind of brings up the point of, like you said, like that one time that you do something or that one post. So I definitely want people to take away from this call is that don't sell yourself short and not reach out to people on social media, because everyone on social media is looking for someone to reach out to or someone to help or someone to add value to. So for me, reaching out to Tai was a life-changing event for me. And for all the listeners, I want you to focus on reaching out to as many successful people on social media, because people will see your message. People will get back to you, but it takes time and consistency with reaching out to them. They might not see it the first time, but as you stay consistent with trying to get in touch with these people, overall, at the end of the day, you're going to get results back if you stay persistent through it.
I'm so glad that you mentioned that, because that's something we talk about all the time. Is most people make that one attempt or maybe that second attempt and that's it, and they figure, this guy's not listening. So you mentioned something that was great, is you direct messaged Tai Lopez multiple times, but it was that one time. So here to our listeners out there is it might take 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 times before you connect with people. But the one thing you also mentioned is something I do really have a passion for, is social media, in the sense of being a connector. It's not just about posting a picture of what you're doing or what you had for lunch. A lot of people do that, and there's nothing wrong with that. And a lot of people use it for posting things about their family or their kids, and that's fine. But there are another avenue for the social media aspect, which is connecting with people in a professional and business manner. So if you wouldn't mind touching a little bit on some of the stuff you're doing with branding in regards to social media and maybe influence marketing possibly?
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, I mean, some of the people that I work with, as well as like my business partner, we really help a lot of companies, whether it be brands selling sunglasses or actual individual personalities, like personal brand people, like a lot of big celebrities in Los Angeles and all that sort of stuff. So my company, and the thing that I really want to talk about when it comes to social media marketing and branding, comes down to like, when you're creating a brand on social media, or when you're trying to get more followers or increase engagement on your post, it all comes down to like, why are people viewing your content and how are you going to get them to your page? Because there's a lot of different ways to market on social media, whether it be influencer marketing, whether it be running ads like Facebook ads or Instagram ads. And there's a lot of different avenues to reach people. And for me and for my clients that we work with, it all comes down to being the most creative, because the thing about social media is that you have the platform to create on it, whether it be a cool video or a good marketing campaign. You have access to really whatever you want to, but you just have to have the creative mindset. So for us, we'll experiment with the Facebook ads, we'll experiment with the influencer ads, we'll experiment with the ads on different big social media accounts, not necessarily personal brands, but we just do a lot of testing. Because one thing that I learned from Tai Lopez, and that he says all the time, he calls it the rule of 10. Focusing on something for 10 minutes, and then if it's working more and you're liking the results, then focus on it for the next 10 minutes tomorrow or the next day, and really scale up the things that are working when you're testing on things, and just overall apply different marketing strategies or branding strategies to many different people that you work with.
It's interesting. I had not heard of that rule of 10 in that context. I've heard of it in other avenues and arenas, but that's pretty interesting. If you wouldn't mind for a minute, is touching on Facebook ads and Instagram ads as well as influencer ads, because I'm not sure all of our listeners know exactly what that is, if you wouldn't mind that.
Yeah, so I mean, like influencer ads, to kind of break it down simply, is there's a lot of people on social media, whether it be people like me that have 100,000 followers, or people like Tai Lopez, or models, or whatever. There's a lot of individuals that have large social media followings, anywhere from, let's say, 10,000 to 100,000 to 1 million followers. And for those that are listening, those are called influencers on social media, because they have a lot of influence. They have a lot of people following them. And the way to incorporate that into branding and marketing that most people don't really understand yet is that you can give these influencers, whether it be one of your products, or allow them to give you a shout out for your page, to direct their individuals that follow them to their social media account, right? So with influencer ads, they're really powerful, because a lot of people that follow, like, let's say Justin Bieber or all these big celebrities, if they're wearing a certain product and that's your company or something like that, then all the people that follow them will instantly be passionate about your product, because that influencer that they're following is associated with your brand.
No, I appreciate you sharing that. And if you wouldn't mind just touching for a minute on the Facebook ads and the Instagram ads.
Yeah, so I mean, with Facebook ads and Instagram ads, that's something that I've actually done a lot with for growing my Facebook page or helping my clients grow theirs. And it's pretty much just running targeted campaigns to specific people in specific areas. And with Facebook ads, that's one of the biggest platforms. It's been on it's like the social media platform that has been alive the longest. And a lot of people test Facebook ads. A lot of people don't test them. But the thing for me and what I'm doing with my company, with my clients, it's very effective because you can target, let's say if you have a bakery in South Dakota, you can target specific people that are going to be coming to that based on where they live, based on what they're interested in, based on their background. And you can really dive into specific demographics. So let's say people are listening to this and they have a certain product, and every company has a certain market that they're trying to reach to. And that's why Facebook ads are really important, because you can really geo-target specific people in certain locations based on what they're like, what they're passionate about. And it's overall just a win-win when it comes to marketing.
Now, is that different, or is that similar to Instagram ads also?
Yeah, so you can actually shadow and make an Instagram ad based on a Facebook ad. You can run them separately, but what we kind of like to do is, like, based on the same demographics, is just you can literally just click a checkbox when you're creating an ad, and it'll create an ad on Instagram as well, since Facebook bought Instagram.
No, that's interesting, and I appreciate you sharing that. We're going to take a little bit of a spin here. If you could have dinner with anyone, dead or alive, who would it be and why?
Yes, a huge mentor to me, I would definitely say Steve Jobs. Just based on, I've read a lot of his biographies. I've done a lot of interviews with him, like watching his interviews and stuff like that. And just the way that he's creative, and like he created Apple on these social media platforms that are alive today, it wouldn't be available without what Steve Jobs created, whether it be the iPhone or the platform or just the phone that started it all, So just based on his creativity and seeing his long-term vision for Apple, and now it's doing what they're doing now with like self-charging, and then moving on to cars with like the huge multi-billion-dollar company. And I'd love to really talk to him and figuring out like the creative aspect and how I can incorporate that into my life.
No, that'd be an awesome guy to have dinner with. So what has been the best advice you've ever received?
Yeah, so I think I've received a lot of amazing advice from amazing people, but I would definitely say when I was at Tai's house, he said when he dies on his tombstone, he wants it to say mad scientist. And what he means about that is he always has crazy ideas. He has so many different business ventures that he's thinking about. And he told the entire audience of like 30 people when I was at his mastermind. And he said, in whatever you do or whatever you don't do, test something for 2 weeks and focus on it very, very hard and strictly for just 2 weeks. And if you haven't put something into testing mode, or if you haven't started developing that app in 2 weeks, or you're not passionate about it, drop it. And I took away a lot of stuff from that, because he was very, very passionate about that. And he wanted us to really write that down like 10 times. And it kind of stuck to me, because we had a lunch break and he came up with 5 business ideas. He sat down for 10 minutes straight with his assistant, and they had 5 businesses being created in like 30 minutes, and they were just testing. So I would definitely say implementing massive testing into my life and using the rule of 2 weeks to really implement it really strictly.
No, that's interesting. I like that, the 2-week test. I think a lot of people and a lot of businesses could have been better, or you could have realized quicker that maybe it wasn't a good idea. And I think the whole testing component of it is really interesting. And it's probably really important in the sense that if you and I were to create an idea today that we thought we were passionate about, and we sat down in a mastermind with it, but then 2 weeks later we hadn't done anything, the reality is it's probably not something we're really passionate about, as opposed to if the same story, and all of a sudden 2 days into it, we had a website, we had all the social media accounts, and we were going ahead. I think that's an interesting, and I'm really glad you shared that with us.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's something that he really tried to drill into our heads. And that's, as soon as you asked that question, man, it's just that Tai really tried to make sure we remember that as a huge piece of advice.
No, that's some great advice. So I'd like you to talk a little bit about some of the stuff that you're doing with your business, and also what's the best way for our listeners to connect with you or follow you?
Yeah. So, I mean, for my business right now, it all really comes down to we're helping like large companies or influencers, like I was talking about earlier. We help them really increase their social media followings, and we overall help them create a more personal branded page, whether it be for the influencer itself or for the company. Because on Instagram, it all comes down, or even Facebook as well, it comes down to like, how are people viewing your page? Why are they following you? And what do they get out of it, right? So what's the value people bring to your page? And me and my partners, we really focus on developing very attainable and followed brands that people like and people follow and people engage with. And we also do that with a lot of like different SEO strategies and stuff like that. But for my personal Instagram, it's just my name at Casey Adams and the number 1, because I try to get my name, but someone has it. But yeah, that's the main platform that I'm using. So if you guys want to connect with me on there, definitely just shoot me over a DM and I'll do my best to reach back out to you.
Nice. And do you have a website or anything for your business?
Yep. Well, so for my personal website, it's CaseyAdams.biz, and you can learn more about what I do and read my articles and figure out more about my business as well.
No, that's awesome. Now, before we let you go, I wanted to ask if you have any parting words for our listeners.
Yeah, definitely. So one thing I like to definitely tell people, and that's actually in my book, is it's not about what you're thinking about doing. It's not about what you're going to do in that next year or in 6 months. It's about what you're going to do right now after listening to this, or right now when you get off this call, and actually implementing it. Because a lot of people read a lot of books, they go to a lot of seminars, they listen to a lot of podcasts, but without the implementation, you'll never have a transformation in your life. And like my good buddy Caleb Maddox says, he says information plus application equals transformation. And if you really want that life-changing moment or that life-changing opportunity, you have to really manifest that by taking massive action today.
No, I could not agree more. That's one of the things we talk about all the time on our podcast is you need to take action. And Jeff Woods was a guest a couple of episodes ago, and he has the One Thing podcast, which is one of the top-rated business podcasts, and he talks about all the time is you could have the greatest content out there, but you need to take action, and you need to take deliberate, massive action to get anything done.
Absolutely.
So listen, Casey, my man, I cannot thank you enough not only for your time as well as your insight, and I hope that our listeners connect with you, whether it's a direct message or maybe reach out to you via your website. And then I wanted just to ask you real quick before we let you go, you mentioned your book. Would you mind sharing a little bit about that with our listeners?
Yeah, absolutely. So for you guys that don't really know about me yet, I actually recently published my book. It's called Rise of the Young, How to Turn Your Negative Situation into a Positive Outcome and Build a Successful Personal Brand. And overall, inside of the book, I go over my story about how I've overcame negativity, how I've been able to transition myself from just being in a negative standpoint to now meeting all these amazing people. And inside the book, I actually have the opportunity to interview a lot of these very, very successful individuals. But overall, the one thing that I want people to take away from my book is just the power of action, right? Because I ended on that last note, was just without action, you can't have results, So people that are, whether it be on a phone call with me or trying to connect with me, I really want to add the most practical value by just saying that my book mainly talks about just taking massive action. But if you want to find that, you can just go to my Instagram and click the link in my bio, and you'll be able to check it out there.
That's awesome. And is it available anywhere else or just via your Instagram account?
Well, yeah, so it's on Amazon. So if you were to just search Casey Adams or Rise of the Young, you'll find it instantly.
Awesome. Well, listen, again, thank you very much for your time, and I really appreciate it.
Thank you so much, man.
To sum up today's episode in our theme of the day, implementation, Casey shared some terrific advice with us. I know personally I learned a lot regarding social media. Casey took his potentially life-altering football injury, and he made a positive out of it. He was also very open when it came to his mindset with personal development, what he was reading, and some incredible mentors that have helped him along the way. Casey also shared 2 really neat points from Tai Lopez when it comes to testing things out and both the rule of 10 and specifically 2-week testing. In his parting words, Casey spoke very passionately about implementation and taking massive amounts of action right now. Today's call to action has been a common theme throughout the last couple of episodes, and from our amazing guests we are so fortunate to feature on our show. Action. The best content, the best potential new business idea or venture, or the best new product are all absolutely meaningless without action. The most amazing anything will yield nothing unless action immediately follows. So today, this morning, this afternoon, or this evening, don't think, don't talk, but do. Do something right now, today, that will lead you to your greatness. And lastly, to our listeners, thank you. We truly appreciate your time, and we hope our episodes inspire you to keep on attacking life and never giving up. To quote Dr. Norman Vincent Peale, it's always too early to quit.